Hello and welcome to the This Is Ibrox podcast. I'm your host, Ross Chalmers, and this is the Sunday session as we take a look back at a really disappointing day for Rangers at Rugby Park yesterday as they went 1-0 down to Kilmarnock, or they lost the game 1-0, should I say. So yeah, we're going to get stuck into this one. It's not going to be very enjoyable. I think everyone's in the same position, but we've got to do it. That's why we're here. So yeah, join me for this one. Scott Cameron, first of all, how are you, Scott?
I'm good. As I said to you before we came on, when the schedule came out, I thought Sunday night after an away trip to Kilmarnock, what could possibly go wrong? So how wrong was I?
Yeah, I always feel like maybe both of us, Scott, we're always on the podcast when things go wrong for Rangers. I don't know what's going on with this is Ibrox scheduling. We might need to speak to someone about that, but we just get rolled out when there's been a bad result. I don't know what it is about us. We might need to ask about that. But we've got Gavin as well. Gavin, how are you?
Yeah, great. As I was saying, I've not been on for months, so it's my fault, and I'm taking part in a silent fashion Sakala sit-down protest as it's everybody else's fault, and that's what happens when you chase Sakala out the door. So apparently dreams do die.
Yeah, look, we might have time to touch upon that at the end. That might be something that the guys pick up tomorrow. I know that's big news at the moment, but yeah, it's a bit of a weird news about Fashion Sakala, but I suppose we're all expecting it. But yeah, tonight what we'll do is we'll dig into the game. I'm keen to know, maybe not go into all the minute details. We all know what happened yesterday, but we'll cover the game, the kind of general talking points from it. Then we'll have a wee look at, I think there's a lot going on at the moment, social media, talking about the tactics, to be honest, with Michael Beale. I think we're all kind of in that position where we're not sure what the team are trying to do, and what they are trying to do, they're not really doing it very effectively. So we'll jump into that. We'll give the guys a chance to have their say on that. And then we'll just jump into some kind of overall questions, what this means for Rangers going forward. Of course, first game of the season. It's not the end of the world as we all think it may be, as we feel, but we'll jump into some of the things, look at pre-season. Are some of those concerns justified now? Things like that. So yeah, as always, get involved in the comments. We love the interaction, and we'll definitely pick out some comments as we go. We'll get everyone involved in it. But we'll just start with the game then. We'll talk about the initial lineups, and we'll come to you first, Scott. The lineup for yesterday at Rugby Park was Jack Butland in goals. It was James Tavernier, Connor Goldson, John Suter, Bora Barisic, John Lundstrom, Nico Raskan, Kieran Dill, Sam Lammers, Cyril Dessers, and Abdallah Sima. What was your initial thoughts on the lineup, Scott, going into that game? There was a lot of question marks around Todd Cantwell. Why was he not playing? Did you feel that yourself?
I mean, I was one of the lucky or unlucky ones that got a ticket through Managerial. So I had just arrived in Kilmarnock as the team news broke. Todd Cantwell was a complete shock to everybody. I think there has been an issue through pre-season, playing him a wee bit deeper. How do you get the best out of him playing deeper? He needs to be in the final third. So I think that was the headline one for me. I understood to a point why he had played Lammers, Dessers and Sima, because I think they had been there pretty much from day one of pre-season. They'd probably played the most minutes. I think I could understand that. Lundstrom I do have an issue over, but that's another conversation. And I think Michael Beale has a blind spot with regard to John Lundstrom, and I think he clearly had a tactical plan as to how he wanted Lundstrom to play. Certainly it was obvious in the first half what he was asking him to do, whether it was the best thing. So I think it was probably a couple of selections away from what I would have went for, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think there was a bit of debate with the front line, what you would maybe see. You look at Danilo, he's obviously just in the door, but he's had a full pre-season behind him, so there was a lot of debate whether he would play. But the Todd Cantwell, John Lundstrom one, I don't think was up for debate. I think most fans felt that Todd Cantwell would definitely play the game and John Lundstrom would most likely be on the bench. Gavin, what did you think about the lineup yourself? I'm keen to get your thoughts on it. Did you think that it was a bit of a mistake from Michael Beale going in with that lineup?
Yeah, I think your first reaction is sort of question it and try to work out what he's doing, and then almost after the game you hear what his thoughts were, and then you look at the team. He's going with his biggest team. He's going with a physical team, and this is sort of thing Gerrard used to do with like Aberdeen and Kilmarnock, and they would get obsessed with what they would do. Kilmarnock's a big team. They're going to be direct. They're going to have 5 at the back. They're going to be physical. So it looks like Beale's going, well, you need to win the battle first. You don't need to win the battle if they can't get close to you. I mean, you look at the boys that are fitter, quicker, sharper on the ball. The play that, I mean, Lundstrom could be here all day speaking about the different options on the bench that could have played instead of him. Even if you go for sort of the more left field one of picking Hadji as a number 8. In pre-season, the times we did see him playing deeper, what he was doing was moving the ball quickly. He was playing with his head up and he was turning the ball around the corner first time. It wasn't 3, 4, 5, 6 touches and then playing it to Tavernier. So at first it was like, right, this isn't handbrake off 11 picked here, and then he's his own worst enemy for setting himself up. And then they won with Lundstrom. We all know what he's going to do, what he's good at, and those sort of games are not what John Lundstrom's good at. And I think that was a disappointing thing. We were all excited, looking forward to seeing a really attacking lineup, attacking players, good ball carriers, players that can beat players 1v1. We didn't get it from before. It was almost like this sort of pre-season had been kind of forgotten about in terms of form, because we'd signed some good players and there was optimism there, and then almost instantly that 11 killed it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think when everyone looked at that lineup yesterday, John Lundstrom was a big one for me, because Todd Cantwell, in my mind anyway, I felt maybe he's got one eye on midweek, right? You're at home, you're playing a Champions League qualifier. Is Todd Cantwell someone that could maybe make a difference for you in that game? So I could maybe understand that one. John Lundstrom, for me, again, is like you just said, Gavin, I completely agree. That's not playing with a handbrake off. All right. He obviously believes that Nicholas Raskin can be the number 6 and he can be the guy that orchestrates everything and he can cover space. Then why play John Lundstrom? And especially in the role he played him. If you notice, they started to, we'll dig into this more as it goes, but they were building up in a 3 and he was playing on the right side of it. And then maybe a couple of minutes later, he would be far forward as an aggressive number 8 on the edge of the box, but he wasn't really contributing anything. It was just strange. And if you're going to have someone in that role, I totally agree with you, Gavin. You want someone like a Hadji. Maybe that's not his best role. Maybe he'd like to be central, whatever, one more line forward, but it gives us a better opportunity to create chances. And like I said, we'll dig into this later, but that is a real problem we have at the moment. And that's not just Michael Beale. We've had that under Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. We had that under Steven Gerrard at points. We really, really struggled to create chances, and playing players in roles like that, that's what's going to happen. You've seen it all yesterday. There's a couple of comments here I just wanted to pick up, actually, because I thought they were interesting. Hugo Bear's got an interesting one here. Expected the relationship between Raskin and Campbell to be the foundation of the team. I think that's fair from what we've seen last season. So to not see them both playing was pretty weird, to be honest. Thomas here goes, he just picked the tallest team. And Rangers loyalist comes in, pretty brutal. No plan, no tactics, no clue. Embarrassing. That's it. We've started. We went for it from the off. So we'll come back to you, Scott. And some of the first half then, I thought, just from my perspective, I thought Rangers started the game okay. First 10 minutes, they looked to have Kilmarnock penned in. And I thought that was something that we've not really seen from a Rangers team lately, that they can keep, constant pressure on a back line. I thought they've actually started okay here. And then as the kind of 15-minute, 20-minute mark went, we lost a wee bit of control. Kilmarnock were breaking pretty quickly and we just couldn't get any real control of the game. There was a number of chances. There was a flick from Adalasima, which probably would have been the goal of the season already if that went in. Dessers had one at the near post saved. I think Lundstrom had one tipped over the bar when Cyril Dessers refused to take a shot, which was a strange one. We can maybe dig deep into that. What was your thoughts maybe during the first half and when you got to half time, Scott? Did you think, okay, the team are just gelling, we'll maybe see a response to the second half, or did you have concerns at that point?
I had concerns from very early on in the first half. It just felt like we were just passing and passing and passing and going from side to side. There was times where there was long balls, try to go over the top and what have you. But it just seemed there didn't seem to be any structure. I've had a concern through the whole of pre-season. What have we been actually trying to do across the friendlies to take us into the start of the season? So there was alarm bells, and I think you quite rightly say we don't create quality chances. It's all half chances or relying on somebody to create a bit of magic. I think that's a frustration. So to be honest with you, slow starts to the game have happened for a long time. It's happened under Michael Beale. I mean, I've written down here Hibs and Hearts away last season. I think we were on it from the first whistle, but there was a lot of other away games, particularly where the first 45. I remember Tannadice where Sakala scored, Tillman scored. The first 45 minutes was dreadful, and I thought, right, it's been terrible. Getting at half time, he'll maybe make one or two changes, make a couple of tweaks, but the signs were there. The signs were there in the first half. I didn't have the greatest vantage point inside the stadium, but it just felt like we were just passing and taking two, 3, 4, 5 touches on a pass. And I think Gav's spot on with regard to the likes of Hadji. And that's one of the things we need to improve to get better, is 1, 2, 3 touch passes and moving, and just it's just lost. There's no movement, you know. So the alarm bells were out for me pretty early on, unfortunately.
I think you made a good point there, Scott, in terms of the tempo we move the ball, and I think that's why a lot of fans really enjoy Nicholas Raskin, because he is one that wants to move the ball quickly. That doesn't necessarily mean he wants to fizz a pass quickly. He'll carry the ball if he needs to, and I think you've seen at certain points. I think I actually seen it in the first half yesterday where he was getting frustrated that there was no movement ahead of him. And he was getting frustrated with the touchline as well, because he was kind of like, what's happening here? So that's a really good point you made. I think that's something that Michael Beale will have to look at. There's always this kind of laboured approach early on in the game from Rangers. They take their time to get going. And I think when you're in a routine like that, it's very difficult to shift. It's very difficult to just switch, the lights on and start playing. So they really need to approach the game better. There's a couple of good comments here. That's one from Rangers 1979. The pace of our play was like a dead turtle. I've never seen a team so slow moving the ball forward. No urgency either. Gavin, what was your thoughts in the first half then? Are you very much in the same lines as Scott? Did you maybe kind of see what I seen, that I thought we actually started okay, and then it just went completely. We just lost momentum.
Yeah, once Kilmarnock started in, and this is the thing, Kilmarnock weren't low blocking it. They weren't doing McInnes ball. They were pressing sort of around the halfway line and even higher up sometimes. I mean, they would press, and then if they weren't getting it back, or if we moved the ball sort of second phase, then they would sort of drop in a little bit. But they were giving us a chance to break them down. But we would get past the first line and then go sideways and then go backwards. So it was like you've got past the first line, now you go forwards, and it was just after that initial 10 minutes, and Kilmarnock realised, right, they're not even going to do the horseshoe and just get the ball wide and throw crosses in, because we weren't doing that. And that was the thing that you can understand, picking a big team and a physical team, but then to not throw crosses in either, because there's so many times where first time or one touch to set and then cross, we could have put crosses in and we didn't. And yet we've got 3 boys that are over 6 foot as our front 3, and then you've got Double running in who's over 6 foot, and then Barsic on the left, you've got Tav coming out the back post who's good in there. So it was like we weren't even doing sort of something that you would think, well, we've picked a big team, so we're going to go direct and put crosses in. We weren't even doing that. It was just after they settled in it just became, this is what we're going to get, unless he does something drastic with the shape and not just change personnel. Unless he does something drastic with the shape, it was, you could see the part, because we've seen it before, and this is the thing where folk are saying about like Advocat and Souness losing their first league games. This isn't Beale's first league game. Some people might count like when he started after replacing Gio, but he's been here for 3 years before then. He knows Kilmarnock, he knows Aberdeen, he knows Ulster, he knows these grounds, and he knows what you're going to get. And yet we're trying to do the same things, or we're trying to do something that we know this isn't going to work. I think that's the frustrating thing.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that with Michael Beale. I think I was quite harsh with him yesterday. Like, well, of course, we all have a group chat in the podcast, and I think a lot of people were questioning, maybe not his position or anything like that, but just questioning what his thinking was yesterday. And a wee bit worrying that he didn't maybe change things, because we can all recognise there was an issue, and there didn't seem to be a real structural change at half-time. I've got noticed here that Rangers' XG at half-time was 0.34, which is that's woeful. I know a lot of people are don't care about XG, right? But that is just horrendous for an SPFL game when you're expected to dominate possession, you're expected to create chances. It's just it's so poor. Gavin, I'll start with you then. Maybe your thoughts at what you thought maybe would or should happen at halftime, and just a general point on. I don't know if you noticed yesterday, but of course the structure is to play narrow, right? And you're looking for. We've obviously got a good technical players in there now that can play 1-2s. I think we've seen that with Abdel Asima yesterday. He was good at dropping in, flicking around the corner. You see, good with Sam Lammers. But I thought there wasn't enough of that to keep playing that way, if that makes sense. It kept breaking down in front of Kilmarnock's back five, and they were just moving out with the ball. Did it worry you that we didn't change the approach at all at halftime? It was very much come out and do the same again and see if we can make the breakthrough. Did that worry you once you got into that second half?
Yeah, it was absolutely reeking of plan A, or plan B is to do plan A better. It was absolutely reeking of that, and that's again, it's you can see, and obviously they do other things in training. But whenever you see the training videos, certainly from this pre-season, it's been that ball carrier, third man running, bounce pass, through ball, cut back, or narrow into the channel, runner shoots, that sort of thing. And you can almost see them trying to do that time after time, where somebody would pick the ball up in the channel and then either play it into the striker's feet and then make the run, or play the pass, get it back, and then try and play another pass. And we kept trying to do the same thing, but there was 3 central midfielders and a very narrow back five Kilmarnock defence, and the space for once was actually outside them, but we kept going narrow and kept trying to do the same thing. And then even when we changed the personnel, there was no real sort of, right, we need to try something else now. Even, and this is one of those things where it is forgivable, where you've got that bigger team to go, right, well, let's start putting pressure on them. Let's start getting the ball out wide quickly, get crosses in it and play off the second ball. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're struggling to break a team down, sometimes just applying pressure, certainly when it was 0-0, because it was still 0-0 going up to another one for that first 15 minutes in the second half. We hadn't changed anything. And it was just frustrating to see us keep trying to do the same thing that obviously hadn't been working, and that's what's got the age-old definition of insanity, is trying to do the same thing and expect a different result. And that stands for not just during the game, but for the years that Beale's been involved with Rangers and playing against that sort of team. I mean, you're saying about the WhatsApp group, I'm going about getting behind teams and cutting the ball back, and it's the difference between them and us is that how much better they turn the defence. Because as soon as you turn a defence, it doesn't matter how many players they've got in a box, because a human's natural reaction is to drift towards the goal and watch the ball. And all you need is a couple of boys timing their runs right better. And we did it once yesterday when Sima got behind and there was nobody there. The ball trundles across the 6-yard line, screaming out for 1 or 2 players to be coming in to tap it in, and there was nobody there, because they're not used to it, because they've not. Yeah. We don't do it. So it's like, it's the easiest. I mean, how many? Scott touched on it in pre-season. That's what worried me too. It was like we had penalties. We had a header in that first game against a third division German side from Sima. It was like an incredible finish, but the XG in that must have been tiny. We had 2 goals.
0-0-1 or something. Yeah,
exactly. We had 2 goals scored from pressing, so defensive mistakes and an effective press. And we had, what was it, 1 or maybe 2, well, including the Sima one, 2 goals created from open play. I mean, that's even then there weren't a lot of chances in those. And I kind of joked that the most effective 45 minutes was when we had Sakala and Matondo playing up front. if that isn't worrying, I mean, come on.
It certainly is worrying. It certainly is worrying. But I don't want to get too carried away. It's only the first game of the season, but yeah, I'm with you. I totally understand the way you're feeling, and yeah, there's a couple of, you've made a really good couple of points in there. The first one in terms of cutbacks, I go on about this all the time, right? And we'll dig more in.
No idea, I think my mic's cut out here. I might be using my laptop. Can you hear me okay?
Getting excited and button bashing.
Yeah, don't know what happened there, sorry. Yeah, I think that's why a lot of fans love Ridvan Yilmaz, because he's willing to get to the byline, he's willing to cut the ball back, and that's why a lot of people just can't stand Borna Barrett at this stage. Another point you made there in terms of crossing into the box, I think you've seen yesterday when balls were going in, because the physicality of Cyril Dessers and Abdelacima, we were causing them problems. There seemed to be kind of second balls available to pick up, but we just weren't responding to it. I think you're right. I think the team just aren't used to playing that way, but I think that's something we need to definitely get more involved in. Scott, I'll come to you then on the second half, and I'm going to ask you about the goal, unfortunately. I'll get Gavin's take on it as well. But yeah, pretty poor second half. There's not really a lot to talk about. Suter's long-range effort went over the bar. I think he had a header that just went by the post. I think Kieran Dill had an effort that deflected over the bar as well. Really not a lot to talk about. The goal. It's a long throw-in from Kilmarnock. I haven't actually watched it back as of yet. I don't know if Borna Barisic has missed the header, caught under it, or if it's maybe just over him, so I'll maybe not be too harsh on him there. But John Souttar has, and up until that point, I thought he was doing okay, but he had an absolute disaster there. How do you explain that goal? Oh, you're on mute. Yeah.
From Souttar's point of view, he just gets the ball caught between his feet when he just can't adjust himself quick. But to be honest, when was the last time Rangers lost a goal where it was great play from the opposition? You know, it's just continues in the same vein all through pre-season, all through last season. We just lose really, really poor goals, and that was just. And to be honest, at 0-0, I thought we're going to do well to get 3 points here. When it went 1-0, I thought we're going to do well to get a point out of this. To be honest with you, you know, and that was just the feeling in the stands, and that the mood had dropped. There was nothing on the pitch to sort of get you excited about in the 15-20 minutes after half time, and then they scored. And then we'll probably talk about our reaction or non-reaction to going behind. But the goal's it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. It just happens so often, and it's a different player. It's not like it's always Souttar or always Golson or always Tav or always Barisic. It's like they take it in turns to be the one that makes a mistake, or it's 3 or 4 mistakes that lead to the goal. You know, it's always self-inflicted, but it's just, and you're up against it. You know, that's that gives. I was talking to somebody today. That gives Kilmarnock an energy shot. They've got something now They had defended really, really well in the shape that McInnes had set them up. But it's just like, oh, brilliant! We've got something to hold on to here, and that made our job even harder, you know. But terrible goal, Ross.
Yep, I have to agree with you. I can't really summarise that any better. But Gavin, I'll ask your perspective on it as well. How disappointed were you to lose a goal like that, especially when I think a fair way of putting it, I don't think Kilmarnock were great yesterday, but I think they worked really hard, and it doesn't mean they didn't deserve the result, but it's not like I came away from that game thinking, wow, Kilmarnock were absolutely fantastic. It's a scrappy goal, and listen, they're going to play for that. They're going to play off set pieces, and we've gifted them the lead. You know, how disappointing was that?
I think my issue with it was actually how we were set up. You can see Souttar, I can see him actually went for the first contact, and you can see him telling him to get it away, which is an obvious thing to do, but we didn't really seem to have, when you're doing long throws, it's that you have somebody in front, somebody behind, because you know who the obvious targets are going to be. And it's one of those ones where Souttar's, he's not been expecting to have to deal with it, and then the way it's landed at his feet, but the actual, I think that was a structural thing that we didn't do ourselves any favours by how we set up to defend that. But then the actual goal itself, as Scott was saying, it's a systemic thing. It just seems to happen over and over again. These goals that are so soft and preventable, and then there was never a hint of that we're going to turn this around, because we hadn't been making their keeper make saves, we hadn't been creating chances and missing them. It was, as a defender, you know when you're having a comfortable game, and the Kelly defenders, the back three, would all be comfortable about, right, we've got the assist, we know what we're doing, we're not leaving any space behind. And as soon as they had that goal to protect as well, and McInnes said the same thing, you have to score first. Against Rangers Celtic, you have to score first. And that was kind of the difference between sort of the day before and with us, is that we gave Kelly the first goal. and they didn't, and then that's it. Can you score the first goal, get the second, and that's game by sort of thing. But no, it's just it's so frustrating. So, and again, as Scott said, it's not like a lapse or a dodgy pass back. It's just we just not dealt with something. And again, it's just seems to be nobody taking that responsibility to deal with something. It's not really who you pick, having Ben Davis there, or I mean, I think the only person that would probably deal with that situation would be Hollander, because he probably would have attacked the first ball rather than he would have taken his own player out as well, sort of thing, if it was within a few yards of him, and he would attack it. But it's just so soft.
Yeah, there's a good comment here from Thomas, and I think it does make sense. We're so bad at throw-ins, offensive and defensive, and again, this is something we have seen throughout. I would say the last couple of years with Rangers. There's just something with those throw-ins. I think we've all seen the clip yesterday where Tavernier sprints the width of the pitch to take the throw in, and then just throws it back the way. And it's, there doesn't seem to be any actual, tactical plan with the throw-ins. It's just very much just get it back and play whenever you want and see what happens.
The thing with the Tav one that annoyed me was it wasn't that he sprinted across and Lundstrom did nothing, and then Tav did nothing, and then it ended up going back to Butland. It was the fact that Tav was running across. There was nobody picking him up, and there was a space for him to run into. If he just ran to if he's running towards Lundstrom, if he runs to his left, there's actually a great big dirty space for him to run into. And he straight away, him and Lammers would have had a 2v1 against somebody, but he just kept running us. And it's like, if you're running straight towards somebody, what are you going to do with the ball? And he was flat out running straight towards him. The only thing he can do with the ball is control it. And when you're running full pelt, you can't kill the ball stone dead. It's just going to go straight back towards Lundstrom. So even then, you're like, what's the thought process there? Even like Lundstrom, when he gets the ball, like, you've got to trust your teammates. Lammers was in a decent place to give him a short 1v1 against somebody. I mean, how many times he had 4 dribble attempts yesterday and he won 2 of them? 30 touches throughout the whole game, no key passes, and it was like he's supposed to be our sort of main central playmaker in that team yesterday. We didn't get him on the ball in quality positions. We didn't get him in any 1v1 positions, and as we've seen in pre-season, that's his strength. He's got good feet. He's good at beating players. And if you're playing against a defence that's packed, you need that element of chaos that Fashion Sakala used to bring to the team. Sorry, I couldn't say that last week. But that's the idea. That's what we needed. If you're playing against a set defence, as I said before, you've got to get behind them. And one of those ways is winning your 1v1s and having players that can beat somebody. And from that throw-in, we had an opportunity to do that if we moved it quick enough, and we didn't take it.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I can really understand the frustration around set pieces, mainly throw-ins. Like, I totally understand the fans being up in arms about that, because it's been going for far too long now, and it really needs to be something that's looked at. I know it seems such a small detail when it comes to a game of football, but you have so many of them, and you can use them very effectively. We've seen that throughout all the top leagues. You can use them to create space and make an opening, so it's definitely something we need to address at this point. Just before we move on, thanks to Glasgow Ranger Nation for the £2. Starting 11 wrong, Lundstrom shouldn't play ever, should I say? And I think a lot of people will agree with that. But yeah, thanks very much for the donation. Really appreciate that. So Scott, I'm going to ask you now about the substitutions yesterday, because I did see a bit of controversy online with it. I think a lot of people were a wee bit annoyed by them. So we seen the 62nd minute. I think it was just before the goal. I think we've seen this. Dessers and Dow came off for Cantwell and Danilo, which I suppose makes sense. And we all wanted to see Cantwell, and that's Danilo's chance to come on and make an impact. The next one, which I thought was really interesting, was Ryan Jack coming on for John Lundstrom. Now, I think everyone would have been happy to see John Lundstrom walk up the park, but I think at that stage of the game, you've got 20 minutes to go, whatever, plus stoppage time. There's a real opportunity there to get a real creative player on the park and take a risk. Put him as a number 8, push more players forward, take a chance. And they decide to bring Ryan Jack on. Now, Ryan Jack is a good player, right? But that's not his job. That's not his role. Were you disappointed with the substitutions yesterday? Because they didn't make an impact. After we had conceded that goal, there was nothing from Rangers. And that's something we'll come on to later on in the podcast, our response to losing goals is really poor. It's probably the worst I've seen in the last few years. I don't know what the team just don't seem to have any sort of motivation to get back in the game. It's strange. But those substitutions, what did you think about them?
I mean, I thought Dessers was the obvious one. Looks a mile away for fitness, certainly. So that was obvious. Danilo coming on for him. I thought Kieran Dowell had done well first half amongst the limited play that we had. So I thought he was unfortunate to get taken off. I would have taken Lundstrom off at that point and went Raskin, Dowell, and Cantwell as your three. That would have been my change, to be perfectly honest with you. But and then I think, as I said earlier, we lost the plot a wee bit for 10, 15 minutes after we went a goal behind. I think a better side would have put the game to bed, and I think that's the thinking. Bringing right, I'm not defending the substitution, but I think that was the thinking. It was to try and get some sort of foothold back on the game. For me, I think Gav was spot on earlier on. Hadji would have been at that point. You're trying to actually, if you're relying on somebody to create a bit of magic or play that intricate pass, Hadji, Cantwell, Lammers is still on the pitch. You've got all your creative players there to do it. So the substitution on the hour. I mean, I thought I would have made 2 substitutions at half time. I would the 2 subs that came on after an hour went through a vigorous warm up at half time. So watching that in the stands, it looked to me as though the 2 of them were both going to come on. And then obviously, we can't make a substitution at half time. We have to wait another 10, 15 minutes before it's on the pre-planner that you can only make a substitution around the hour mark. But they had no impact on the game at all. And I think that's, the second half was just a shambles. From the first half wasn't great. The second half was just a complete shambles.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I thought the subs came on and tried their best. I don't think any of the players came on and were absolutely dreadful. I think Todd Cantwell at stages might have tried a wee bit too hard, but do you fault someone like that that's trying to get you back in the game? I'm not really sure. But yeah, they didn't make the impact that we were looking for. And yeah, that was really disappointing. I thought that second half yesterday was just really, really bad. See, for the first game of the season where it's all about positivity, you're enthusiastic for the season. And listen, we've all watched football long enough. We've all played football at certain levels. You can go a goal behind and you can respond. You can get back in the game. It's not finished. And that looked to me to be the response yesterday. And that was really difficult for me to swallow. Before we move on then to I'm keen to talk about the kind of width in the team and the fullbacks being involved in that. And I think that bit's going to be a bit of a negative, right? As most of this podcast will be. I am keen to see if you felt anyone yesterday look okay for you, because for me, I think there were some individual performances. I don't think no one was superb, right? We lost the game 1-0, but with a few players in there that I thought maybe surprised me. People, Abdallah Sima looked okay yesterday. I thought he showed some good moments, good off the ball runs, was trying to get to the byline at least. I thought Kieran Dowell started the game really well. He maybe fell out of it a wee bit in the second half. Gavin, I'll come to you on this. This is your opportunity to maybe be a wee bit positive if you want to be. Was there anyone in there you thought, okay, I can see some positive signs here? It's particularly the new signings anyway. Did you see anything?
Butland was good. I thought seriously though, Butland was proactive. It could actually have been worse yesterday. Actually, I read something during the summer. It was about it was a study into sort of goalkeeping actions, and it was about the percentage of involvement of a goalkeeper in Premier League actions, and it was to do with how they spend most of their time, and most of their time is spent preventing either chances or opportunities or stopping the progress of attacks. And he did that a few times yesterday. He came out high enough to clear it, to sweep up, and he was very proactive, which is good, and he looked solid as well. So couldn't dance with the goal, and it was a good start. It's a shame, obviously, the result, and his teammates let him down. But I think certainly we can be confident so far that was a good one. I agree with Dowell. if you're taking anybody off, it should be Lundstrom and not Dowell if you bring in Cantwell on, and because Dowell, I thought he looked okay. He looked to sort of win the ball back and actually looked to progress the ball as well. Raskin was the obvious one. He was the one that did. We need to. If Beale wants to play the type of football that he's telling us he wants us to play, you have to start with Raskin and then put everybody else round about him in a similar mould. So with Sainz Fuentes, we've got Cantwell, who's the same. Boys that if they're under pressure can evade the pressure and can carry the ball forward and can beat players through pace and power and by winning the ball off them and turning it over. And then the first thought is forwards. The midfield has to be like that. The first thought of a midfielder going sideways or taking 3-4 touches to give them a chance to look for a pass. And you could see it yesterday with Lundstrom because he was playing that heat map thing I showed everybody yesterday before. He's almost holding Tav's hand, and it was like you would look up and you could see Barisic in acres, and even on the TV you could see he was in absolute acres, and you can see Lundstrom thinking that if I shank this out for a throw, I'm going to get pelters here, and he's just looking at the pass, and then he stops and just plays it to Tav 5 yards away. You know, what was the point of that? And that was just sort of indicative of the day. But the forward line as well. It's one of those. It's the sort of Cholak paradox of: is it him playing badly, or was it because he never got any service? And the front three, I think Lammers maybe could have done more in terms of responsibility of, right, the ball isn't getting to me, so I'm going to go and get it and actually try and take us up the park. But flip side of that is if he's not been told to do that, then maybe he's been waiting for the ball in wider areas. It's not been coming to him. And as I said, Sima looked probably his better game for Rangers so far, and Dessers looked rusty. But you can see what type of player he is. But he still looked that wee bit rusty.
Yeah, I think you made a lot of good points in there. I think your point about Nicholas Raskin's a really good one because I think we're all seeing now that I think he can do a lot more than just be a natural kind of 6, right? I think he can be an 8. I think you could probably play him wherever you want in that kind of midfield 2 or 3, right? But it looks like Beale thinks you're going to be the sitter. You're going to be the guy that starts things. You're going to be the guy that drives us forward when we need it. And he can definitely do that, right? What doesn't make sense is to have him play that role and then build up in a 3 with Lundstrom far right. It doesn't make sense. Split your centre-backs. Not to go too tactical here. Split your centre-backs, play him as the base, and have aggressive number 8s in front. It doesn't make sense for me. I totally agree with you when it comes to Raskin. Build the team around him. Him and probably Todd Cantwell. These two need to be in the team every week for me. Sam Lammers has been absolutely fantastic in pre-season. He wasn't good yesterday, but I can understand why he played the game. But we need to find a way to get Todd Cantwell in the team too. He's a game changer, and game changers need to play. There's a couple of comments here. There's an interesting one from I think it says it's Snaky Bear here. Raskin, man of the match. I don't think I've ever given out a man of the match in this podcast when we've had such a negative result. So that's maybe the first time we've done that. But there's a couple other shouts there. Scott says Butland definitely. Cubby Custer says Butland and Raskin. Hugo Bear's the same. I can see in the comments there. So yeah, a lot of people agree with you, Gavin. What about yourself, Scott? Before we kind of move on to because I understand the rest of this podcast is going to be pretty negative, right? Was there anyone that stood out for you? Do you agree with the names that Gavin's given?
I think the names that have been given are, but you're not going to win a lot of games of football with only 3 or 4 players getting pass marks. I don't care who you're playing. You play against Morton in a couple of weeks in the League Cup. You're not going to get away with it if there's only 3 or 4 players bother to turn up. So massive improvement needed back to front. Butland done well, and there's positive signs there. But we need so much better.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's difficult to be positive after a day like that. So we'll just leave the positivity there, right? We'll get right stuck into this now, kind of where we feel the problems are fundamentally. I'll stick with you first then, Scott. We referenced that enough, right? Clearly, Michael Beale wants his team to play with the width coming from the fullbacks, right? He clearly feels that regardless of who's in that role, that's who's going to provide the width. He's going to play a narrow front three. They're going to be technically good footballers, very dynamic. They should be able to link up, create space, right? Create chances as well. Didn't see any of that yesterday. I want to ask you about James Tavernier and Borna Barisic specifically, right? Because my concerns with this system and the way we want to play is that you're asking two fullbacks that, let's be honest, are towards the end of their career, right? They're not finished. Neither of them are finished, but they're on the way down. We've certainly seen Borna Barisic physically over the last couple of years definitely deteriorate with a couple of injuries, right? You're asking two guys that are physically not at their peak to create the width for you, and you're not giving them really any support to do that. There's no overlapping runs. It's very much get the ball out to them, and if they create a bit of space, try and get it in. With a Kilmarnock defence, it's already well set. You've not moved them or anything. They're ready for that to come in. We heard David Martindale talk about this last season when he played against Rangers. He said, that's what we want Rangers to do. We want to force them out wide, and we want them to cross it in, right? How does Michael Beale change this, Scott? Do you have concerns overall with the kind of tactical approach of that's where the width's coming from, we're going to stick at it? Did it concern you that we didn't change it at all yesterday? And do you think it needs to change? We need to do something different.
It's the over-reliance,
Yeah.
I think, I think Gav spoke about Mark Warburton's famous plan B is to do plan A better sort of situation. Yilmaz, I don't think Michael Beale fancies him, but he has the skill set to do what he wants to do. And until such time as he brings somebody else in, Ridvan was obviously unavailable to play, so I can understand why he wasn't involved yesterday. Tav, to me, over the last 10 months, has almost lost that half yard. And there was an incident in the first half where he was just really, really slow and getting across right on the touchline. He just looks as low as he's lost a yard, and I think you're going to have a real problem if Michael Beale, without shouting for a new manager, he's signing his own P45 if he persists with Lundstrom, Tav and Barisic. You might get away with just Tav, but if he persists in 40-50 games during the season playing those three players, he won't be Rangers manager for long.
Yeah, I think I agree with a lot what you said there, especially on Ridvan Yilmaz, as Gavin departs for a minute. He's going to sort his laptop. Especially on Ridvan Yilmaz. I totally agree with you, Scott. I don't think Michael Beale completely fancies him. Now, I predicted I think it was maybe the start of June, that I was pretty certain Borna Barisic would start the season, right? And not that I agreed with it, but I was pretty certain he was. Now, we'll never know because Ridvan Yilmaz was injured, whether he was going to start the season or not. But totally agree with you. He has the skill set required to play the system that we're going to play now, right? So even if Michael Beale maybe doesn't fancy Ridvan Yilmaz in terms of it's not his player, I think it has to just be an overriding now that, well, if I want to play this way, I need to play a player with that skill set, and he needs to be the primary left back. He has to be. Now, we don't know how long he's going to be out for, right? So this is probably an issue we're going to deal with for the next couple of weeks. If that is the case, he's going to have to try and find a way to make that left side a wee bit more dynamic. I think we still have problems on the right, but James Tavernier can usually do something out of nothing. He can score a free kick sometimes. He can create a wee bit of space and whip in a great ball. I know Borna can do that as well, but it's limited these days, I have to be honest. So, look, I totally agree with you. The fullbacks are definitely a concern. We have two other fullbacks there, but again, I don't think the left back's fancied completely. And Dujon Sterling's not really known as being an aggressive fullback in terms of going forward. He's known for being defensive. So I wonder if these fullbacks are going to change over time. I've noticed a comment there from someone. I think it says Rangers 1979 mentioned about Alan Devine as well. He could be an option, but he's not really had a sniff, really, since Borna Barisic came back from the World Cup. So, look, it's up in the air. Gavin, I'll give you your say on this because I'm interested in what you think. Especially, the width are coming from the fullbacks. We have to accept that. Maybe we need a wee bit more rotation in there. Maybe we need a wee bit of freshness with Ridvan and Dujon Sterling. Regarding that, you're always going to play narrow, or Michael Beale's always going to try and play narrow originally, and he's going to use that for the width. Do you think when there needs to be more than just that system, though? Do we need to have multiple game plans? You spoke about this earlier, plan A, or plan B is to do plan A better, right? Do you think that needs to be in Michael Beale's Arsenal. And of course, Michael Beale, of course, will have different ways of breaking down teams, but it didn't appear that way yesterday. So that's where the concern comes from for fans.
Don't mute, Ross. Yeah, for me, the different with the plans, it's Ridvan kind of comes in. It's because he can cross the ball. If you want him 20 yards from goal to put one in his left foot, he can do that. However, he can also overlap, and he can underlap. He's only 22-year-old, so he's going to make mistakes. But when you look at that game yesterday, and you look at the average positions for the players, our fullbacks are halfway into Kilmarnock's half. That's their average position. So they're spending most of their time in. Let the two centre halves in your midfielder that's covering worry about defending. Let Ridvan use the pace that he's got in his ball carrying ability to beat players 1v1. And that's what, again, we saw it in pre-season. There was one of the games, I can't remember what game it was, but the first thing he did when he came off the bench was he created their best chance. I can't remember what game that was, but Ridvan came on, took the ball, drove forward, and then cut it back for Lammers to. And I think it ended up being a good save, but Beale needs to find that solution of this isn't working, and it's not so much. I don't think that Tavernier and Barisic are physically not capable of doing what's been asked of them. I think they're too set in their ways in terms of their style of play. Barisic is a crossing fullback, and you saw it yesterday when the fullback stood him up. Barisic thought was right. I can't go backwards here because that passing angle had been cut off. So he just knocked it towards the byline and then won the corner. And it was like that's all Barisic has. That's all he's ever had. He's never sort of dummied it and cut back inside and tried to beat them or knocked it past them and then run round outside them or whatever. And Tav's the same. Tav needs somebody to bounce the ball off to beat a player. And if they're receiving the ball on the touchline with nobody anywhere near them, the ball's going to go one of two places, back to the midfield or crossed hopefully to the back post, and that's all that's going to happen. And yeah, Beale needs to find out that the solution to stop us just going to the default mode of what Barisic and Tavernier will always resort to, which is crossing from deep.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think there was what I found interesting yesterday, Gavin, was I totally agree with you when it comes to Tav and everything you've said there, but what Tavernier used to be quite good at was he used to be able to come inside, not necessarily do anything with his left foot, but he used to come inside and that would create space on the outside. And you used to see Joe Aribo was always the one that kind of burst into that space. So you've seen a Ryan Jack. And interestingly enough, when Ryan Jack came on yesterday, he started doing it. And he was doing it both sides. He was trying to help the fullbacks. He was making overlap and run. And he doesn't necessarily get the ball every time, but he creates space and it moves the back line. And we didn't have that at all until Ryan Jack came on. So, look, I totally agree with you. There needs to be more than just give the ball to the fullback and hope they can do something. The two fullbacks aren't going to be able to do that anymore. They're not going to be able to beat their man down the line. And I think I agree with you. Borna Barisic has never really been that. And Tav is always someone that if he gets a good opportunity to cross, he will. So I totally agree with you. The width thing is a massive concern, and it'll be interesting to see how we address that on Wednesday. Scott, I'll ask you a couple of questions then, or the first question anyway, and it was something that came up yesterday on the coverage about Rangers going behind, right? We've seen this a lot last season, Rangers going behind by a goal. What is this from this Rangers team that they just seem to not be able to start games with the intensity required to get themselves ahead? They just keep, I suppose it's a sign of a good team. You go behind, you can win points, right? But eventually it runs out, right? You have to take the initiative in games. You have to keep the pressure on opposition. You need to kill games, right? That's a separate problem in itself. We've seen that with Rangers. Are you concerned about this? Because this doesn't seem to, of course, it's the first game of the season. I appreciate we might go on a 10-game run here, but it's carried over into the next season, which is really disappointing for the fans, isn't it?
It's just more of the same. And I think it was in another chat about we've seen this movie so many times that's why I think we're all very frustrated on what we watched yesterday. You know, I mean, you've just seen that movie so many times, and the manager's got a responsibility. He's the man that's working with them. He's had an opportunity to bring in his players, get his methods across, work them hard during the summer. I think they've done a lot of running. I would say that we've probably done more running than we have done actual structural work on the way that we should be playing. I don't know how true that, but I'm only basing that on what I have seen in the games. We don't play with a fast enough pace. Where's the energetic and exciting Rangers side that Michael Beale spoke about? This is the problem with a manager that talks as much as Michael Beale. It comes back to bite him when you get a bad result because he says so much. That's why the fans are so frustrated, angry, and critical. He talks that much. If you talk that much, you need to back it up. And this is his Rangers team.
I think we're Dave. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Sorry to cut you off there, Scott. I totally agree. I think we're at that point with Michael Beale now that I think when he first came in, we were all very refreshed by it because we had Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. It didn't really give a lot away. So we were all very much, this is great. The manager's been open. He's telling us everything. But like you said, if you're going to be that way and you're going to be out there, then the criticism is going to be even heavier once these things happen. So, look, I totally agree with you. It's something he definitely has to look at. Gavin, I'll ask you then about the overall feeling then, right? Again, I'm conscious, first game of the season, can turn it around, but there was a lot of positivity, right? Summer recruitment, I think we've all been enjoying it. I think we've all felt that the signings have been, improving the squad. We've seen people move out that we wanted to see move out. That's going to continue. Is that kind of positivity and enthusiasm just gone completely now after the first season? After the first game, is the pressure just on now Michael Beale and this Rangers team to deliver? There's no room for any time to gel, anything like that. This is, you need to go out and you need to get results now.
I think that's the same for any Rangers manager. In fairness, you need to get results and you need to get them now. It's I think the issue, and it is that cliche of actions speaking louder than the words. It's not just the intent that we're playing with and the sort of pace that we're playing with. It is, as I said earlier, it's his team selections as well. That kind of sets the narrative before a ball's even kicked, and we saw it yesterday before the first whistle even went. We knew that we weren't going to get what he'd suggested we were going to be seeing this season, and was building it up and got the exciting signings, and that's the frustrating thing. I think I used the word infuriating earlier on, and it is because it's not quite that they've been sold a dream, but you're thinking, right, it's almost why is this why Michael Beale's got the job? Because he said, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. But in reality, he's actually a subconscious pragmatist that would rather try and win 1-0 by just doing more than the opponent, rather than actually genuinely taking the foot from the pedal. I just saw a worrying thing on Twitter, and I wrote it down, and it's one of those ones where it's quite strongly worded, but then the more you think about it, the more it's actually quite worrying. Rangers have been awful to watch in most games since Beale came in, and it is a really strong sort of statement in that. But the more when you actually think about that, he's been in quite a while now, and he had inherited a squad that was a shambles in terms of injuries and players that want to be there and all that sort of stuff. But he does need to start having performances and results, because if we just keep drifting, it's only going to end the same way, with the same players at the core of it. And we've touched on Barisic, Tav, and Lundstrom. In Beale's system and what he's trying to do, those are three key positions. Those three plus your sort of floating number 10, those are the four key positions in this system. And we've got three boys there that yesterday we saw them aren't capable of playing the style of football that Beale is telling us that he wants us to play. And that is, for me, that's a huge problem that he needs to find, either getting three boys at a 30-year-old to change or make hard decisions.
Yeah, no, I agree with a lot what you said there. I think I think the tweet you've read is probably fair. I think there hasn't been many performances that you could really go, wow, what a great Rangers team we're watching. Though that game away at Tynecastle, the game away at Easter Road, I thought they were really, really impressive that night. But there is limited, the old firm at the end of the season. But I've said this before, there's a lot surrounded that. Didn't really mean anything, if we were honest. So he maybe doesn't get that one. But I totally agree with what you're saying. But Scott, I'll ask you then, just in terms of that point that Gavin's made there and the tweet and things, do we have to park that and just forget about last season now? And do we have to just look at this season and basically say, right, it's now about performances going forward? Of course, we would have said that from the start, right? But Kilmarnock's done as well. We need to forget about it. Is it very much he's got to get both now? The results need to come, but we need to see more performances. And we'll forget about last season. You could argue it wasn't his team. I know he knew a lot of the players, but does he deserve the time, the support? I sound like I'm talking about getting rid of the manager here. I don't mean that at all. I just mean, do we need to take a step back and give him that time and really, really see a Michael Beale team on the park?
I think Michael Beale has to put the team on the park that he's spoke about. Yeah, energetic, exciting, handbrake off. You know, how many more cliches can you actually pull out? But until I see a Rangers team on the park that's actually what he's telling us, you know, talk the talk. You know, it's like you can talk the talk, but you need to be able to walk the walk. You know, and I just want a Rangers team that moves the ball quickly, has got passing, movement, energy. You know, I don't think it's much to ask, and I think he's been backed more than any Rangers manager since Dick Advocaat, and I'm just fed up. I've been fed up with a lot of what he's had to say for a long time, but when the performances on the park aren't getting any better, you know, that's what Michael Beale has to do. Stop talking, get the Rangers team playing like the Rangers team that he is talking about, playing a certain way. Because the Rangers team that we have set up in pre-season and played yesterday is nowhere near what he is talking about.
Totally agree. Can't disagree with that. And all your words there are spot on, and we definitely need to see a response. There's a couple of comments here where I'm going to ask you about what you want to see on Wednesday, right? So that's the opportunity to be a wee bit more positive and bring the enthusiasm back for Rangers, right? But we'll bring these ones up, but we'll shut this bit of the podcast down. Luke says, I genuinely can't wait till the season ends and it's only match day one. That's what Rangers do to you. I mean, I think we were all feeling that way yesterday. It's maybe settled a wee bit now. But it's difficult to disagree with when it came to my feelings yesterday. Aldo RFC as well. I know it's one game, but I still think we were worse than last season. I mean, that goes with your point there, Gavin, that we're not seeing the performances. And John says, we need time to gel, but don't have it, unfortunately. And I think it will take time and cost us Europe. So, and I know he's not alone in that. I think a lot of people feel Europe's going to be really difficult this season. But listen, we're gonna find out on Wednesday. Scott, start with yourself then. And I'll ask you both this to finish the podcast. What do you want to see from Wednesday? You know, do you want to see a raft of changes personnel wise? Do you want to see a completely different stylistic approach? I mean, I think we know that's not going to happen completely, but do you want to see a wee bit of a change in there? What do you want to see from Wednesday? What's the response?
I'll jump first. I think 2 or 3 changes. I think the back line pretty much is all that's available, assuming Ridvan's injury is going to keep him out. But I think middle to front, we just need to play on the front foot. And repeating everything I've said, we have to have a tempo, we have to be energetic, we have to start the game well. You know, we have to have movement. You have to have your creative players on the pitch. There's part of me wonders about bringing Cifuentes in. You know, he's played a lot of football. He's apparently quite a dynamic. I haven't overindulged in his YouTube clips, but on the basis of what's been said, he would bring a freshness and a dynamism that is needed in the middle of the park. So you could go with Cifuentes, Cantwell, and Raskin as your 3 in the middle of the park. I think that would certainly be an improvement for me, because my worry is on Wednesday night that Lundstrom doesn't start and he brings in Ryan Jack. and you're in a similar situation. And Danilo in for Dessers, I think would be the other change. I think that looks very obvious to me. But regardless of the team that is set up, we have to see a reaction. We can't have laboured 3-4 touches on the ball, moving the ball slowly. We have to play at a tempo, and that shouldn't just be against Servette. That should be in every game that Rangers play. We should be on the front foot and forget about the opposition. It's about what Rangers do. And if we turn up, we'll win the game on Wednesday night.
Scott, I'm inspired. You've got me right up for this game. I wish it was Wednesday now. I agree with a lot of what you said there. There's a couple of good comments from Turnox. He says, Seema and Lundstram should not start. RFC said, agree with what you said there, Scott, about Cifuentes coming in. I want Cifuentes, Danilo and Campbell instead of Seema, Dessers and Lundstram. There's a few predicted lineups in there. I'll maybe come back to them after I've asked Gavin. Hugo Baird, Lammers and Danilo up front with Cantwell behind. Craig Ray says you could play Lammers and Cantwell as two number 10s with Danilo up top. I think that's a fair shout. I think that's probably what we all kind of expected to see. Gavin, same question to you. What would you want to see? Is it Scotland went more for kind of personnel? Obviously their overall approach, but what do you want to see on Wednesday?
Yeah, I actually agree with that last comment in terms of the front three. And in terms of the midfield, it's one of those ones where horses for course. I think Jack is actually a better option for sitting in front of the defence, but with Cifuentes and Raskin, so they add the mobility and the dynamism, and Jack then is able to offer the protection for the fullbacks to let them go higher up. Because one thing Jack does do is he does provide cover for the fullbacks, and it's one of those things where last season and even this season, I suppose, we've been mumping about signing players that aren't in form. We've signed Danilo, who's had a cracking pre-season at Feyenoord, and he's fit. You can't say he's no fit. He's had a full pre-season with Feyenoord. He's played 3 or 4 games. So Fuentes is halfway through the season. He's had a week off, maybe a little bit longer. He'll have had a few more days training. He could have played at weekend. He's not injured because he had a training session then put into the squad, so he's not injured. He could have played at weekend. There's no reason why he couldn't have played. If you're fit enough to sit on the bench, bear in mind that there's players that didn't make the squad, he could have played. And that's one of the things that annoys me, is that we've signed players that are on form and they got half an hour between them at the weekend, and they should be starting. You'd like to think that in terms of this summer, that Cifuentes and Danilo are our 2 big signings in terms of potential for not only selling value, but to be key players and to be real contributors to a style of play that Beale has been telling us that he's looking to sort of introduce. And I said this yesterday, it's you start your strongest 11. You've got 5 substitutes now. This is something that, I mean, I follow rugby as well. Rugby's got this right for years to have starters and finishers. Start with your best team. Do the damage then, especially domestic football. We should be bringing the strongest players to start the game. Then you change the game, and then you bring on players. Try to bring on players to chase it when you're goal down against 11 men behind the ball. It doesn't matter who you bring on if you're not going to change your system and style of play. But I would just like to see that the exact same thing that Scott says, and understand the need to maybe have a bit more protection for a defence. But ball carriers, more mobility and just speed of play.
Yep, I'm with you. Totally agree. You both made a lot of really good points there, and I'm actually looking forward to Wednesday now. So thanks very much. I appreciate it. Loyalist here. A bit of positivity. I reckon we'll win on Wednesday. Listen, but we need a bit of positivity right now. Loyalist, we've got an interesting one here from Finfogel. He said Roof needs to be in the team. He's our best forward by a mile. It's lunacy not to play him. That's interesting. No one's spoke about Kemar Roof tonight. I know he came off the bench yesterday and I thought he looked okay. So Kemar Roof is always an option for us when he's fit. But I think we all understand that that's quite rare these days. Rangers 1979 says Servette have played 5 games already this season. 1-1, drew 4. They drew loads last season too. Their match fitness could be key on Wednesday. So yeah, it's going to be a tough tie. I reckon Servette will be right up for it. And we'll just finish the comments for tonight with this one from OPTMST. Let's see a Rangers manager. So he's going right in. It's not about personnel or tactics. He just wants to see a response from Michael Beale. There's so many comments about people predicting their team and things like that. And I think if I start reading every single one, I don't think this podcast will end. And I need to let the guys get away tonight because they've already been here for an hour. But yeah, look, I really appreciate everyone getting involved in the comments. We will be back tomorrow night as well. I think it's 9 p.m. Craig's back with a breakdown. So look, they'll be building up to the game tomorrow night. I believe they've got a Swiss football expert on tomorrow night to build up about Servette and things like that. So definitely get involved. They'll be doing their team predictions. So save all of that for tomorrow night. If I start reading them now, we'll never get off. But yeah, remember, you can find us all on the social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You can follow the podcast on all the major podcast platforms, Apple Music, Spotify. Please remember to subscribe to the channel and give this video a like if you've enjoyed the content. It really, really helps it out. Continue to bring the content like this that, well, I was going to say you guys enjoy, but I'm sure most people didn't really enjoy this podcast tonight, but we still appreciate you being here. And just left to thank the guests now. Scott, thanks very much for joining me tonight. I appreciate it. I know it's not been an easy one.
It's been very therapeutic as part of my contract to appear when Rangers have disappointing results.
Do you know what, Scott? I've said this before that I need to speak to Tommy, the managing editor, about this, why I'm always on. And I never have spoken to him, but I think this might be the night I need to get an understanding of why I'm always put forward for these ones. So, yeah, I'm very much with you on that. Gavin, thanks very much for your time. I know that's the first time you've been on for a wee while. So I was going to say again, hope you've enjoyed it as much as you can, basically.
Yeah, I'll not be back.
I don't really blame you. I don't blame you. It's kind of the way I feel at the moment as well, that I'm always put up for these ones. So yeah, thanks very much, both of you. Really appreciate it. And thanks everyone for, being part of this, engaging with us. That's why we do it and really enjoy the community here. So thanks very much. And yeah, please come back tomorrow. We'll be back on at 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. and you guys can get your predictions in then. But yeah, thanks everyone. Cheers.